Is the Force real? Welcome to Philosopher's Corner. I'm John. Is the Force real? So, the Force is the concept from the Star Wars films. And in Star Wars, the Force is described as an ubiquitous spiritual field that connects everyone in life. And there are certain characters in the world that are Force sensitive who can affect things using the Force, Jedis and Sith, and I don't know, maybe there's some other ones I'm unaware of. So, is the Force real? What would be, if it's being a metaphor, is it real? Like, as philosophers, we can ask anything in philosophy, so might as well ask some fun questions every once in a while. Um, so, when we look at our reality and we're searching to see is the Force real, the first thing we need to say is there an energy field that's binding everything in the reality? And when we look into science, the answer pretty quickly is yes. Um, Basically, especially when you go into the quantum field, um, basically everything's connected, everything's superpositioned, everything's quantum entangled with the higher higher dimensions and like the lower layers of the reality. When you get down to the sublimated levels of the reality where it's just electrostatic plasma, by all accounts, everything's seemingly quantum superposition against that. And the reality that we're living is sort of this holographic generated game that we're in, that different religions, different mystical accounts say the nature of our experience is generated by, our karma in our field, which if you get deeper into that, many people just say that that's the continued momentum of reincarnated lives, or the momentum of your existence as you continue in different forms throughout the universe, because it's eternal and infinite. And so wherever you're at in this particular moment is the momentum of all of your existence, and the reality is interacting with you to generate the experience that you need or want or deserve in the moment. That whole infrastructure comprises the Force. The entire interconnectedness of everything is the Force. Some people might describe it as the ether. Religious or mystical traditions might have different names for it, like the Holy Spirit, or I really wouldn't know. I don't know what the nomenclature is for other mystical and religious traditions, but essentially the animus of reality of the universe is what they're all referring to for a thing that we might be able to say, okay, that's the Force. And so that's the first portion of, when we're trying to figure out, okay, is the Force real? What is it? Okay, so it's this interconnected, unified field that binds everything. Now, the next thing people want, I think the natural next question when you go, okay, it seems as though the Force could be that it might actually be just the unified field that we're in, that we call reality, where everything's interconnected. And then, I mean, the reason the Force is fun to watch is because characters have figured out how to do seemingly superhuman things with their connection to the Force. They have telekinesis. They can move things with their mind. They can have telepathy, where they can read people's minds or have their minds read, or communicate information from mind to mind non-verbally. In their cases, they usually use it for tactical or military functions, because their characters are engaged in war. Um, they also can they can fly, they can levitate, they basically can make their body do things that seem to be in contravention with normal physics. and all based on their connection to the Force. And also, they in their film they claim that in the aura field they have things called midichlorians, and midichlorians are a metaphysical portion of their aura that amplifies their ability to interact and use the Force. So translating to us, so we say, okay, in reality, okay, cool, we do have this unified field. We are bound by cause and effect and all these things, and as far as we can tell, life itself is this field. So the next sort of thing we ask is, okay, can we do any of these things? Can human beings do any of these things that Jedis and Sith and whatnot do? And the answer is yes. The answer is yes. Like, there have been, I mean, we're in 2024 now, so there have been at least 100 years or more worth of experiments on telekinesis where people have shown telekinetic abilities. People have also shown the ability to, telepathy. People have done telepathy. People have done remote viewing with their body. I believe people even have been able to like start fires with their mind. All sorts of things that by the normal rules of physics, traditional physics, are not possible. So we know that like those mental abilities are possible and have been demonstrated. We know that intention is a real thing. Like, even if you don't take it to the telepathic, telekinetic level, we know that intention can be felt just as common sense people, really. If somebody, you can feel when somebody throws you a vibe, good or bad. If the woman across the room flirts with you, or the guy at the red light threatens to kill you, non-verbally, either way, and they send that emotion to you, you can feel it, right? And so those are small evidences of the fact that the Force is real, because if we weren't interconnected on an energetic level, those communications wouldn't be possible. So we know that like there are mental powers, there's emotional intentions, and by account, I mean, I've never seen it personally, but there are like numerous accounts coming out of what we call the Far East from here, but like Nepal, Tibet, India, those regions, for thousands of years, of highly advanced yogis who have found ways to basically levitate or use their bodies for activities that are not in convention with normal physics. So if we accept those accounts, then the answer would also be yes. Now, I haven't seen that in person. This is just sort of scholastic discussion here. But if we do take those accounts as even one of them is true, then that also satisfies what we're saying, the requirement for, okay, is the Force real? Or, yeah. If any of those cases are true, because we already have a lot of accounts of, psychic abilities, basically, and telekinesis and all these other things, telepathy, astral projection. So if even one of these yogis figured out how to float even a little bit, then yeah. So what else? So what else would be in, wrapped up with the Force? You have intention, you have psychic abilities, you have manipulation of the body in contravention with normal laws of physics. I mean, honestly, even just some of the stuff David Blaine has done, I think qualifies, because he's clearly tapping into. He for sure has like mental and physical discipline, but I think the mental and physical discipline simply allow him to tap into these into the Force for his use. He's clearly pulling on some energy source that is not available to the non-adept to do these things. He's using them for endurance, or he's using them for whatever sort of spectacle he's designed, they're impressive. They're very impressive. And that's aside from his magic. His magic is obviously phenomenal, but it's obviously sleight of hand and misdirection and traditional magic and whatever. But when it comes to his feats of endurance and his spectacles, those are real, and he's clearly tapping into some sort of energy reserve or some sort of level of the reality that us normal people are not. Which I think, that could be further proof of the Force. But either way, it's interesting because the Force, however it's described, would seem to be a necessary component in the reality for humans to continue development of self, right? Oh, and I didn't even mention, like, if you're going to include any of the actions of, Yeshua, Jesus Christ, or, obviously he was in touch with the Force, and the accounts of his existence are numerous, and the accounts of what he did are numerous, and many are verified. So through independent reporting. So if you're to take the accounts of his life as true, then clearly the Force exists, because he was tapping in all kinds of stuff, and he was changing, he was all sorts of things. So it would seem to be, whatever we would call it, I think the Force is a fine thing to call it. It would seem to be a necessary component of the reality if you look at human evolution and you plot a trajectory for it to keep continuing, and you ask yourself, well, what would be the next step for an individual human in its development, when you go, okay, this is a human being, it has a physical body, it can do these physical things in the 3D reality with normal physics. But then also, now we're noticing that parts of the human have, well, we can only describe spiritual organs, what do you call them, like third eye, or all the other pieces. It's not a physiology discussion. But basically, spiritual organs that many traditions and many people from across the globe and across every demographic that you can imagine have come back and said, we have these spiritual abilities. And it would seem that as you take both those things into account, the physical animal side of the human and then the spiritual side of the human, and you chart the trajectory of the evolution, you would say that it would be sort of inevitably trending towards being able to do things like Jedis do, to just be able to go, oh, okay, these spiritual organs, if you look at it just from a purely evolutionary standpoint, human beings develop these spiritual organs, and they're highly sophisticated, and we have reliable reports for millennia that they work, especially when attended to and well treated and given proper consciousness on. And what we can derive from that is the fact that the spiritual field does exist. Because according to normal Darwinian natural selection, which really only covers 3D development, nothing, like, nature's only real function as a eternal machine is to sort of grind out the portions of biological and physical beings that are no longer suited for the natural environment it's existing in. So the presence of any spiritual organ, let alone multiple, let alone areas of the brain that are specifically designed to decode spiritual information, is absolute proof that there's a spiritual field. Because nature has evolved us to this point in time to have spiritual organs, spiritual processing centers, spiritual portions of our brains, which equates into physics, into the metaphysical field. So we have all these metaphysical capabilities which explains telekinesis and telepathy and all the other stuff. So it's absolute proof that there is a spiritual field, that there is a unified, energetic, metaphysical, spiritual field, and we might as well call it the Force. Because using all of reality as the evidence of natural selection and evolutionary features only being present when necessary for the survival of the species because it's practical application in the environment, human beings all, we admit we all have third eyes. And like, without going any further, that's all we need to admit. Oh, so we have this other spiritual organ. Well, ergo, there's a spiritual field, the Force. Well, I hope you found this helpful. Thanks for spending some time here at Philosopher's Corner. May the Force be with you and have fun.